Jason Tembush. Go ahead, Jason.
John.
Thank you. I am going to turn it over to my colleague John Tenbush, who is actually on the screen in the public hearing. Virtually, just so everybody can see it.
Okay. All right, John.
Good afternoon, all. This afternoon we are holding a public hearing. It's the second of two required public hearings for Community Development Block Grant. In April 2019, St. Lawrence County applied for $550,000 to the New York State Community Development Block Grant Program to fund the 23rd round of its direct home ownership assistance program. The county's DHAP is designed to assist low and moderate income households to purchase existing homes by providing a down payment on the mortgage, payment of most closing costs, and assistance as needed to rehabilitate the housing unit to make sure that it meets code. In July 2019, the county was awarded $550,000. A grant agreement states that all funds must be expended within 24 months. That's by the end of June this year. The agreement anticipated that 17 households would be assisted. The county estimates that all program funds and all program delivery costs, and the numbers are listed there, would provide direct benefit to low and moderate income households. This equals 95% of all project funds providing direct benefit. That number exceeds the 70% threshold for LMI benefit that's required by HUD. The New York State Community Development Block Grant Administration Manual requires us to hold two public hearings, one during the application phase for a grant and one while we are delivering the grant towards the end of the grant. That's the public hearing that we're holding now. The second public hearing is required to furnish the following information: the amount of CDBG funds available, $550,000 total, including $452,000 for homeownership assistance and rehab activities, $69,000 for program delivery, and $27,000 for admin costs. We need to tell you the list of activities undertaken. We have done 13 units so far, purchases and rehabs. We have 2 more units that we expect to complete, and our average assistance has been $29,845 per household. As I mentioned earlier, the funds provided 95% direct benefit to low and moderate income households. If our activities resulted in displacement, we're supposed to review the displacement plan. No displacement of a household has occurred. The county does, however, have a displacement plan if that was needed. The county has proposed completing 17 units, and we expect to deliver a total of 15 units. That's 88% of the proposed activities. That's well within the limits that the Office for Community Renewal. We are supposed to provide for and encourage citizen participation. That's the purpose of tonight's meeting. We're supposed to provide citizens with a reasonable opportunity to comment on activities. And this notes that comments will be accepted until June 15th. They may be sent to Jason Fotenhauer at the address, or by phone, or by his email. And finally, I'd just like to mention the Community Development Block Grant history in St. Lawrence County. The Planning Office has administered CDBG funded housing programs since 1982. We have done 24 grants to do homeownership assistance, and these programs have assisted 625 low and moderate income households. We've also obtained 30 grants to rehabilitate standard units, and these have helped 638 households to improve their living conditions. The county's CDBG housing programs have assisted over 1,260 low and moderate income households. We estimate an economic impact to the county of over $70 million. Other communities in St. Lawrence County have successfully secured and administered CDBG funded housing programs on their own. These communities include the city of Ogdensburg and the villages of Gouverneur, Messina, Potsdam, and the towns of Fowler and Madrid. CDBG funds have also been used in our county for community planning projects, for water and sewer projects, for community centers, and economic development projects. That concludes my presentation. Are there any questions?
I don't see any questions. Is there any wishes, or are there any comments from the public? No one's out in the hallway. Looks like there's no comments from the public either. Okay, so we will declare the public hearing closed. Thank you.
Have a good evening.
Okay, thanks, John. At this time, I'm going to open up the call the meeting to order for the May 24th boardroom meeting, special meeting, and I have a motion to suspend the rules of procedure to allow the attendance of this meeting telephonically as per Executive Order 202.1, Article 7.
So moved.
Mr. Light, Mr. Denisha, and Mr. Dan Fay seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Kelly, could we have a roll call?
Reagan.
Oh, excuse me, can I interrupt? Tony Ark will be excused from the meeting tonight.
Forsythe.
Here.
Lightfoot.
Here.
Sheridan.
Here.
Smithers.
Here.
Denisha.
Here.
Perkins.
Here.
Akers.
Here.
Fay.
Here.
Haggard. Fiacco.
Here.
Burke.
Here.
Arquette. Terminelli.
Here.
Curran.
Here.
12 present.
Thank you, Kelly. Next, we have a suspension of the rules. We have a motion to suspend the rules procedure to allow the, well, wait a minute. I think I've already done that. Approval of the agenda next. Do we have a second? Anybody make a motion? Second, or Mr. Perkins makes the motion, seconded by Mr. Lightfoot. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Presentation of resolutions. The first resolution was tabled at the April board meeting and will need a motion to remove it from the table. May I have a motion to remove this resolution from the table? Mr. Akers, and seconded by Mr. Dan Fay. All those in favor of removing from the table?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Carried. There's a substitute resolution requested for consideration. Mr. Akers, would you like to read that and move it forward, please?
I would, Mr. Chairman, thank you. I offer a resolution determining that construction of 2 new truck equipment garages and 2 new salt sand storage buildings in the town of Russell and Lisbon, St. Lawrence County, New York, will not result in any significant adverse environmental impacts. I move this resolution.
Is there a second? Mr. Denisha seconds. Any discussion? I don't see any discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Okay. Mr. Akers.
I offer a resolution authorizing the chair to sign a contract for the construction of a salt storage facility in the town of Russell. I move this resolution.
Is there a second? Mr. Lightfoot. And Ms. Kern. Any discussion? No discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Mr. Lightfoot, would you like to offer that resolution?
Give me a second to get this thing on.
I can do that.
It's gonna take me a second.
So, it's number 2, that's okay. Or I could have Mr. Smithers, all right? Go ahead, Mr. Smithers.
I'd like to offer a resolution authorizing the chair to sign contracts for construction of highway storage facilities in the towns of Lisbon and Russell.
And seconded by Mr. Denisha. Any discussion? No discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Mr. Lightfoot, do you have it out now?
No, I don't.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Smithers, I'll have you do the next two. Go ahead, Mr.
I'll offer a resolution authorizing the chair to sign a contract with Starks Gravel and Excavation LLC for removal of the Northumberland Street Bridge over Morristown Bay, PIN 3341380, Resiliency and Economic Development Initiative, REDI project.
I'll say.
Seconded by Mr. Lightfoot. Any discussion? Yes, go ahead, Mr. Forsythe.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Where is Starks located? Where are they out of?
Constable.
Constable.
Constable? Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Mr. Smithers, is there another one? Did we skip one?
I don't think so.
Okay. We're all set then. We've got all of them finished.
One more.
One more.
Oh, this one's gonna have a roll call.
The multi-use trail.
Roll call, yeah, on this one. Okay, go ahead, Mr. Denisha, go ahead and read this one, please.
Mr. Chairman, I offer a resolution authorizing the superintendent of highways to sign agreements with entities for the purpose of administering multi-use trail permits, modifying the 2021 budget for the county administrator's office, and move for its adoption.
Seconded by Mr. Perkins. Any discussion? No discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Excuse me, roll call. Can I have a roll call on this one, Kelly?
Lightfoot,
Yes.
Sheridan,
Yes.
Smithers,
Yes.
Denisha,
Yes.
Perkins,
Yes.
Akers,
Yes.
Fay,
Yes.
Fiaco,
Yes.
Burke,
Yes.
Terminelli,
Yes.
Curran,
Yes.
Forsythe,
Yes.
Reagan,
Yes.
13 yes, 2 absent.
Motion carries. Next on the agenda is chair's appointments. I don't have any appointments this evening. If there's no further business, we can adjourn. Any further business?
Just move to adjourn.
So move. Adjourn.
I apologize for not being ready.
That's okay. There was all kinds of names I had to choose from who were on the top of the list for each one of the resolutions.
Mr. Parishville and Governor. Larry, put the wood to the.
We have pounded a little bit hard.
Okay, I'd like to call the order this finance meeting for May 24th and approval of tonight's agenda. Moved by Mr. Deniso, second by Mr. Smithers. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. I will note that Tony Arquette had emailed me that he will not be attending this meeting. I don't know about Mrs. Haggard other than Ruth Doyle said she is traveling. Approval of the minutes for April 26, moved by Mr. Perkins, seconded by Mr. Lightfoot. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. First resolution is from Solid Waste with Mr. Don Chambers, and that resolution is modifying the 2021 budget for solid waste for revenue received from the Development Authority of the North Country, known as DANG, for recycling equipment. Moved by Mr. Smithers, second by Mr. Perkins. Discussion, Mr. Chambers.
Yes, thank you. Back in 2019, DANK awarded the county $600,000, and the county needed to match to buy recycling and other solid waste equipment. In 19 and 20, nearly all the grant funds were used to purchase various pieces of equipment for the solid waste department. However, we are able to still expend a little over $14,000 out of that revenue. Like I said, we need to match that. We've obtained bid information on roll-off containers. Most of our roll-off containers are rather old, and I believe that the funds would be wisely used in replacing some of the existing roll-off containers that we use for recycling. These would be open top containers like we use at for example, at the Governor Star Lake Transfer Station for accepting recyclables.
By saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried.
Thank
So
you.
we'll move on to highway with Mr. Chambers. The first resolution is modifying the 2021 budget for the Department of Highways Capital Fund for the purchase of a trail grader for the St. Lawrence County Multi-Use Trail Project. Moved by Mr. Perkins, second by Mr. Smithers. Mr. Chambers.
Yes. One of the comments that we've received just lately from New York State DEC pertaining to the trails is the need to regrade and recapture some of the gravel that has been pushed aside. This trailer type trail grader can be pulled behind a 4x4 pickup truck or a small tractor. It does not involve a real experienced operator to operate like a normal grader. This is more like a farm implement that would scarify the soil and then bank put a crown back in the trail. So grade's about 6 feet wide at a time. So on our widest trails and a pass down and back, we could have the excess material that's normally pushed to the side back in the trail to reuse the gravel.
Okay, any questions for Mr. Chambers? Seeing none, Mr. Forsyth.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Don, two things. Whose equipment's going to be used to pull it?
The county does have a trail tractor that was purchased, I believe, in 2012 or 13. So that can be used there, and volunteers could operate that trail tractor. Currently, it has a loader bucket on it and a backhoe. The backhoe could be dismounted, and it could pull this very easily.
Okay, and volunteers, my next question is volunteers will be driving the county tractor?
That is correct. Under our current volunteer steward agreements, that's been happening right along. Mr. Forsythe.
Okay. And is it your vision that once the permits start becoming issued, that will come back to the county to offset the initial cost, or are we just pro rata on that?
Well, I think that's the intent of the trail system, is to bring revenue into the sales tax and also through the sale of permits. Yeah.
So it's a plan to okay, all right.
Yes, sir.
Okay, anyone else? Okay, all those in favor of the resolution signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Our next resolution is authorizing a bond resolution for the acquisition and construction of 2 equipment garages and 2 sand and salt storage buildings at a maximum estimated cost of $6 million, and authorizing the issuance of up to $6 million in bonds of St. Lawrence County to pay the cost thereof. Moved by Mr. Sheridan, second by Mr. Lightfoot and Mr. Reagan. Discussion, Mr. Chambers.
Yes, thank you. As the board has just in the special board meeting chose to award the contracts, the lion's share of that money would be utilized. In fact, that had a grand total of 5.5 million. The balance would be used for bond counsel and advertising and such, and also the in-kind work that the county would do, such as grading the parking lots, paving the parking lots, and putting the floor in the salt, both salt storage buildings. So that's where the balance would come up to the $6 million.
Any questions concerning Mr. Forsythe?
What's the thanks, Don. What's the anticipated loan or bond agreement term, and rough idea how much per year cost?
That I will have to defer to either the county administrator or the treasurer.
I don't know if the county treasurer, Renee, are you with us? Yes, she is. Renee, can you answer those questions for Mr. Forsythe, please?
Okay, I think your first question was the term. Do you mean how long we will borrow for, Dave?
The question was, what's the payment going to be and how long a term are we doing?
Well, actually, the payment will be depending upon the time frame for them, and we don't have a debt schedule yet. We really don't have it until the sale. I believe initially, I think that the term was going to be 15 years. So.
Okay, and just for these 2 at the moment?
Yes, just for the 2. And initially, we're going to be doing a bond anticipation note. I lost my, sorry. We'll be doing a bond anticipation note. And once all the costs are collected and everything's reconciled, we'll do long-term financing.
Okay, and you think 15 years? Okay.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Anyone else? Okay. So one of the things, Dave, that I asked about in pre-committee is if there were some other bonds that we had of higher interest rate that we could pay off and take advantage of the low interest rates right now, refinance, and nothing's really available, I think, until 2026, isn't it?
I think 25,
25.
I believe. We can get an update out to the board on that.
Renee has got her eye on that, so may have further. Okay. So this requires a 2/3. Oh, okay. So this requires a 2/3 vote. All those in favor, are we supposed to do a roll call, Kelly, or?
Not needed.
Not needed. All those in favor of the resolution signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, anyone opposed? Nicole, you were late. I thought you had your hand up for no, but you're good.
No,
Okay.
I didn't know if you needed a count, so I just keeping it up, sorry.
Okay, thank you. So it looks like everyone's in favor of those that are present. All right, thank you very much. Motion passes. We'll move on to real property with Bruce Green, and that resolution is authorizing real property tax law correction of errors. Mr. Green.
Yes, good evening.
Well, first I got moved by Mr. Perkins, second by Mr. Smithers. Go ahead, Mr. Green.
Yes, good evening. Occasionally, we bring forth to you correction of errors that are over $2,500. Less than that amount is handled between our office and the treasurer's office. These two in front of you tonight for your review are two parcels that are over that threshold, and we're asking for approval. The first one has to do with a correction of an error that had to do with a property that transferred, and the assessor did not take off the house on this parcel, and a new bill has to be now sent out to Betsy Myers. The second one has to actually be a refund, since Taylor Timber LLC paid their bill, and this is going to be a refund back of $3,305.83. So we're just asking for approval to honor these.
Okay, any questions for Mr. Green? Seeing none, all those in favor of the resolution signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up is our treasurer, Renee Cole, and the resolution is adopting the mortgage tax report. Moved by Mr. Smithers, second by Mr. Sheraton. Ms. Cole.
Hello. My video won't work, so I'll just speak anyway. So this is did I have a second? I'm sorry. I didn't know if we had to have a second on that.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, all right, thank you. The camera threw me. So this is a semi-annual resolution that allows the treasurer's office to distribute monies collected by the county clerk that are due to the towns. The county clerk turns the funds over to my office monthly, and twice a year they submit a report to the state for approval to release the funds. Upon approval from the state, we submit a resolution for your adoption. This amount represents the 1st, 2020 through March 31st, 2021 time period. If I can give you a note, usually I compare the quarters or the 6 months to prior year similar periods. And I can say this is $673,000 that's we're requesting to be released. That's a similar amount for the 2020, $371,000 and change, and for $391,000. So it indicates, I guess, a pretty strong real estate market at this time.
That's good news. Okay, any questions concerning this resolution for Ms. Cole? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Okay, so we have the 2020 unaudited results. Renee, are you going to speak to that?
I am. And Deb is joining me tonight. She's going to run the presentation. She's here. We're going to switch back and forth. But before we get started, can I just give you a couple of other quick notes before we get into this one, because it takes a few minutes. Just give you an update. I don't know. Is
Yes,
that
go
okay?
ahead.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Just as a note, the March bank rec summary report is on Google Drive. It was submitted earlier. The May sales tax update was emailed this morning to the legislators. If you haven't seen it, it should be in your inbox. And, last week we filed our 2020 document. That's the AUD. Early last week, we got that filed. And I think that was it. Other than a note to let you know that our auditors will be coming June 8th. And that was it for my notes.
Okay.
Then we'll get started on the 2020 unaudited results.
So Renee, we're having a difficult time hearing you. You're fading in and out. I don't know. Is there anything we can do, Dylan? Or?
Do you have a lot of background noise, Renee?
I think I did a moment ago, but it's quiet now. How is it now?
It's clear now. Yep.
Okay. Sorry about that. All right. So we'll get started on the unaudited results. I'll try not to take too long. This can be kind of long and dry, but if you have any questions, We'll try to remember to ask you in between sections of it, but please feel free to raise your hand and interrupt if you have any. The first couple of pages are fund equity comparisons. I'm not sure why, but we've always provided just the first one with general fund, county road, road machinery, and liability and casualty. The second page includes the solid waste fund and the workers' comp fund. And I'm hoping everybody has those in front of them. I'll keep going. Okay. So I usually give you a couple of notes about the fund balance results. I think you'll all be pleased with our results for 2020. We have come in about 4.5 million to the good as far as fund balance. There was a couple of other things. Purchase orders are slightly down and reserve balances are similar to the prior year, but the unreserved unappropriated increased 4.4 million and some change. A couple of really big factors that contributed to that, although they aren't the only ones, because there's a lot of moving pieces and there's always positives or negatives. But two of the biggest were the budgeted fund balance and unspent contingency that's carried in the board office contingency line. That was $2,681,000 unspent. The amount that was targeted for fund balance was over 1.5 million, and the rest was unspent contingency. The next big factor was our sales tax revenue that exceeded budget by just over $2.6 million. That's the gross amount. It excludes the share with the municipalities. And moving on.
And on the sales tax increase, 2.6, you said?
Yeah, a little over 2.6 million for the year.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. And I see Deb has the screen up.
I'm trying to make sure it's displaying. I'm not sure.
I see it on, yeah, we see it.
Okay.
It's tough sometimes when you have two screens.
Yeah.
The county road fund decreased its overall fund balance by a little over $564,000 between 2019 and 2020. But we actually appropriated $1,063,000 to balance the 2020 budget. That appropriation, along with we did have a fund balance resolution that appropriated another $117,000. If none of those things had happened, they would have been adding $600,000 to their fund balance for the year. So even though the appropriation was made, we did not take all of that fund balance to budget their balance to end their year. So that's actually a positive thing, although it's down $564,000. Road machinery increased their overall fund balance by just a little bit over $54,000. That's the direct result of their operations. Liability and casualty added $20,000 to theirs as a result of their operations. And currently, solid waste is showing an increase in their retained earnings, about $475,000. I always note at this time of the year that we're missing the solid waste that we receive from our auditors for OPEB expense and pension liabilities. So that number could change a lot by. So, and last, the self-insurance fund, Fund 7, is on increase $1,560 as a result of their operations as well. I mentioned earlier that our external audit is scheduled for June 8th. They will be here they will be on location. They'll be here at the building 3 days for at least 2 weeks in June, and possibly another 3 days the third week. It always depends on how much they can get done. I'm not sure if I remember, but last year they did the entire audit from their Buffalo office. So it will be good to actually, another sign that things are returning to normal. They'll be able to come up and do some of their testing. It's a lot. It's less time consuming. They have better access to the information, and it'll be a good thing for us all. I mentioned earlier, the OPEB and pension entries are not posted for solid waste. They're also not posted yet for Fund 7 self-insurance, which we just talked about with the small gain. So that number could change as well. I don't know if you have any questions on the fund balance section. I'll move on then.
Yep, move on.
Okay. The next couple of sheets, fund or sheet 3 is provided. It's more just for informational purposes. It's alone. The next 2 sheets are sheets not labeled. They're the comparison 2020 to 2019. The first one is the assets comparison, and the second is the liability and fund comparison. I don't want to take a lot of time with these, but if I miss something or you see something that you have a question about, you can ask. We will try to answer it right now, but if we can't, we can always check into it and get back. These numbers consist of a lot of other sub-account numbers, and sometimes it's hard to pinpoint exactly what it is you may ask a question about. But starting on the asset side of things, a couple of note. Under the cash and time deposits, there was nothing in 2019, but over $6 million. 20, that's under A201 in the first section. Just to note that due to market conditions, we've switched to utilizing these money market accounts. This is the A201 versus using the A450 accounts, the investments in securities. So instead of treasuries, where we were making very good money before COVID hit, money markets have given us our best option to earn anything. So that's why the balance is sitting there and nothing down below under A450. My next note was about the allowance for receivables account being substantially lower. That is A389, about in the middle of the page. It's down 86%. That account is lower. It's mostly because of 2 resolutions for community services that were done. If you recall, we had recorded a very large allowance the year before. The year before last, I think in 2019, we had identified a lot of uncollectible accounts last year that we wrote them all off. So we're no longer carrying that there. Another large number is the state and federal receivables for social services, the A account. It's up substantially without a lot of work diving into, yeah, we lost the picture down. I see Dylan down there. Without a lot of work diving into it, you know, it's always a combination of factors when we look at things at the end of the year. This is likely due to several of them because it is a snapshot in time. I think because the state was withholding 20% state aid. Another thing that is likely, because I'm not certain we've recovered from it, I think the state kind of withheld state aid in general as down for a couple of months early, and I'm not sure how caught up they are with that. DS has a number of things that happen sometimes in one year or might skip a year and happen 2 times in another where the state will advance them money there. We're not sure without going to the department for them to delve into it, but this is much higher than it normally is, and I didn't want to skip over it without pointing that out.
Yeah, Renee, if you hold on a second, we have Mr. Lightfoot. Mr. Lightfoot has a question.
Yes.
Renee, are any of the receivables that are in the 2009 or that were due in the 2019 fiscal year carried over into 2020 or 2020?
If for some reason they're not paid, they would be included in this balance.
I understand that. So what I'm looking for is, are there any that were unpaid that were due in 2019 that are now carried over into 2020?
That would still be standing at the end of 2020? Just.
What I'm looking for is were there any monies that we did not get that we were owed in 2019 that are now in the 2020 figures?
If I can jump in, I don't think there were any in the department. So there may be outstanding from the board office or the treasurer's office for different miscellaneous situations, but the departments, we balance their receivables every year and pursue any outstanding amounts. So I would say, no, they would not have normal course of business receivables that are still outstanding as of December 2020.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, Renee, go ahead.
All right, under A440, And I bring this up only because it has a 3,361% difference, and I would be amiss not to explain that to you. The due from other governments, this is actually used for the due from the city of Ogdensburg. It requires current year taxes due the county. So if you recall, at the end of 2020, the city still owed the county $336,324 on 2020 outstanding taxes. They sent a check that was processed January of 2021. So that has gone away. But at December 31st, that still stood there. Okay.
Yep, okay, thank you.
All right. Then the next page, I don't want to take too long, but I guess I'll just point out the A601 accrued liabilities. There's a 30.21% decrease on that. This is largely, it's just lag payroll. We have to put payroll expenses in the proper year, and we don't do a check on December 31st for the prior year. So in 2020, we only had 4 days of pay that was paid in 2021 that had to be pushed back to 2020. In 2019, we actually had 12 days. So that's all the difference represents. And I don't know that I highlighted anything else. I don't think there's anything that's very unusual about the rest of them, but if you have any questions on the liability, you can ask.
Okay.
Okay, and if not, we will turn this over at this time to Deb. She's going to go through the next couple of sheets.
Okay, Deb, you're on. Thank you,
Okay.
Renee.
Thank you very much. My two reports are the department performance, budget performance reports. The first page is a summary by departments, and it's primarily adopted budget, modified, the actual, and then the difference from the modified. This is the short version to give you an overall picture, and it shows most of the funds in the top section, 1, 3, 4, and 8, and then solid waste and the county attorney's fund 7 is shown separately, the totals on the bottom. I wanted to use the next report, and I'm not going to flip through the pages because it'd make you really dizzy. And it's rather lengthy. It's 9 pages, but it goes by every department and their performance by categories. So I'm just going to give you a couple highlights of some of the categories and some of the performances. So first of all, the salaries, I'm going to do salary and fringe together, as they're rather related to each other. And so the salaries, we had an increased cost in 2020 because there were a number of contracts that were settled. So we had to pay the retro pay. So that increased the cost of the salaries and the associated fringe within the departments. We also had many vacancies left open. So that lowered the salary cost because hiring came to a halt. So that was an offsetting effect. The fringe itself did increase because of increase in cost, not only the portion for the retro pay, but the increase in cost in general. Health insurance costs, you can see it's towards the bottom of them. I'm looking at the top box, that the fringe benefit payments here, this is the county. So the county cost is the total of these two, but this is the cost, actual payments that come out of the treasurer's office. Mostly due to health insurance, that went up like 11%. So our cost of fringe benefits actually went up considerably. Talking about fringe benefits, I wanted to remind you that we calculate an estimate of some of the fringe benefit amounts, and that's what gets charged to the departments that makes up this total up here. The difference between what we actually pay and what's charged to the departments, which includes the cost of retirees, is not actually charged to them. We calculate, it's called a fringe, unallocated fringe. So we calculate it by department based on their portion of the salaries of the total county. So you can see the final or actual cost for each department, but we don't actually charge it on paper, and no money transfers except for solid waste. So back to the top, the equipment lines, whoop, didn't need to change page. All 9 departments that had an equipment budget in 2020 were underspent. They were underspent, about a third of it was not spent. Some did roll to 2021 by encumbrances. They had orders placed that they had not received. So those amounts are added to the 2021 budget. But all 9 departments were underspent. That was about $1.5 million. The contractual line here, which is not just contracts, but it's everything that's not salary or fringe or equipment. So it's accumulation of everything else. That's almost 14 million less than the budget. That is about 10% underspent. 28 out of 29 departments underspent in their 400 lines. So part of that underspending was the contingency that was budgeted in the board office for this year, and that had a remaining balance of 2.7 million. Public health also underspent significantly. They spent less than 70% of their 400 accounts for their early intervention, preschool, and prevent lines. The schools not being open and probably being busy with COVID, they did not provide a lot of services, and that happened in many departments, as you can imagine. The revenues on this line, you can see we're down 7.75 million. That's about 3%. On the good side, there was an influx of COVID funding, about $1.5 million, and that was split 500,000 to the bus system in the planning office. Public health was about 400,000, and Office for the Aging was about 300,000. And because they used the staff that they would have paid with county funds, some of those departments actually showed a drop in their net county cost because of that new additional funding, which also came with many other responsibilities, as we know. 20 out of 29 of their departments had a lower balance in the revenues than they budgeted. For example, the county clerk's office was about 400,000 less than they budgeted. That's about 8.5% of their revenue. They were down. And investment earnings were down. As Renee said, we had to use different tools for investment, and we ended up with about a third of the investment income that we expected and budgeted. On the good side, sales tax was over budget by about 2.6 million, and NYPA had a high flow payment, and the county's share of that was about 380,000. So there were a couple good points too. Net county cost. If you click, it moves, apparently. So the net county cost 7.4 million to the good. So overall, the cost was that much less than budgeted. 17 out of 29 departments had a lower than budgeted county cost. So the whole impact of their expenditures and their revenue, that was about 13.7 million. That was offset by 12 departments that had an increased net county cost. That's not from overspending, however, because they can't spend over what they are budgeted, but that's due to a drop in revenue and the retro salary and fringe that we talked about earlier that was not in their revised budget. The fringe costs went up about 3.5 million, and social services went up about 1.7 or 5% of their adopted budget, and they went over that. Community services, their net county cost was only half of what was budgeted. They were limited in their services, so the net cost of those services was not incurred. Office for the Aging was down about 20%, probably due to the COVID funding. And the bus operation was down 25%, about 200,000, also probably because of COVID funding. So overall, appropriations were down 7%, about 13.5 million, and revenue was only down 3%. So it ended up not being a bad result. Any questions on any of these? Yep. Dave?
I think I can't see it on my screen, but Mr. Forsyth has a question.
Yeah, I've got two. Thank you, Debbie.
Yep.
The health insurance, what was the actual, what it came in over budget for the health insurance?
I have that.
Okay.
It was 2,659,000.
Okay.
That's just
What's-
the hospital medical. That's not including pharmacy, admin, any of that,
Okay.
the hospital.
And what is our total contribution to the retirement system? And did that increase over the prior year?
I'll get you that in just a second.
Okay.
Last year, we paid our year end was $5,762,000.
Yeah.
It's a little bit more complicated than a straight bill because there's an accrual. It's on the state timeframe. So,
Okay.
but compared to the prior year was just a little under 5.7. We did increase our budget substantially though for 2021 because we were informed that we're going up. But we'll see that this year.
You cut out on me, Renee. I didn't hear the last part.
Okay. We increased the 2021 budget substantially because during budget development, our projections, the state does send us an estimate very late budget development stage, and we increased ours to capture. It's
So how substantially? What are we talking?
well, from 5.9 we budgeted in 2020 to 6,425,000.
So $500,000 more. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Anyone else?
Okay.
Okay, I think that's it. Do you have anything more, Renee?
So just
Or
two
Deb?
more quick notes.
Okay,
That's done.
yeah, go ahead.
The last two included in the package, and I hate to not mention them because we do prepare them. There's a breakdown of the miscellaneous reserve accounts. These are separate from the state approved reserve accounts. A couple changes this year to note. The Fort Law presentation, there was $58,000 there every year prior, but that is now gone because you released the funds to the fort. This year, we added a reserve at the end of 2020 to set aside the $30,000 for the Bassmasters, which I believe we just had a resolution releasing those. I could be confused about it, but those are the two differences, the main differences on those. And the last document included in there is our tax collection rate. 2020, we ended at 90.65%. It was just a little bit below prior year of 90.83%. So,
Okay, excellent. Okay,
okay.
I'm not seeing any questions here on the home front. Thank you very much, Renee and Deb.
Thank you.
Thank you.
To turn that over to Dylan.
Yep.
All right. So good news in spite of COVID. Next up, we have planning. We have Jason Fulton-Howard. And the resolution is authorizing the chair to sign a contract with New York State Environmental Facilities Corporation in St. Lawrence County Soil and Water Conservation District for the septic system replacement program and modifying the 2021 budget for the planning office. Moved by Mr. Smithers. Second by Mr. Sheridan. Go ahead, Jason.
Thanks very much. Good evening, all. Appreciate the opportunity to bring these next two resolutions to finance. Just a little background on this program. The county received some funding back in 2018. They received a total of $225,000 in the first round of this septic repair program. With those funds, we were able to repair or replace 40 systems on a variety of water bodies throughout the county. The second round it came out just a few months ago, and we were awarded an additional amount, $340,000. The original intent was 5 years at $225,000. I think we received some more because there was some funding recaptured from other parts of the state. So our allotment went up to $340,000. It's a good thing. However, they did reduce the number of water bodies where we could implement this program. In the past, with the first round, we did a lot of work along the St. Lawrence River and Black Lake. Unfortunately, Black Lake is out of the mix for round 2. The water bodies that are eligible in round 2 are the St. Lawrence River from Hammond up to Oswegatchie, the Racket River from the village of Potsdam to the St. Lawrence, and the Little River, not the Canton Little River, but the Little River down in the towns of Clifton and Fine. So a little different environment to work in, but we're confident that we will be able to use the full allotment this time around as well. We've seen a lot of interest, a lot of telephone calls to our office, email inquiries about when the funding will be available. Just one other quick point. In the first round, there was no administrative funds attached to this grant. Most grants allow you to take a percentage for the administration and program delivery. That is not the case with this funding source. So we were able to partner with a county, another county agency, the Soil and Water Conservation District. They were able to provide administrative funds in two subsequent years for the first round, and we anticipate doing that again. We know that they have allotted money for the first round. Excuse me, for this year rather, and look forward to getting the project up and running with that amount, knowing that we will need some additional administrative funds to continue the program to fully expend the 340. But we anticipate either subsequent years of being able to secure money from Soil and Water or some other funding source for the admin side of it.
Okay, Jason, we have a question from Mr. Lightfoot.
Jason,
Yes,
you said that the funding was available from Hammond up to Oswegatchie. Does that
Correct.
include does it include the town of Oswegatchie, or does it end at the town of Oswegatchie?
It includes the town of Hammond and the town of Oswegatchie.
And the town of Morristown.
Morristown, correct. Morristown, Hammond, Morristown, and Oswegatchie. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Forsyth. Go ahead, Dave.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Jason, the first time it was out, it was limited to 50% of the cost, up to a cost of, I think, 10,000.
Correct. Yeah.
Is that the same formula now?
Correct. Same parameters this time around. Yep.
They'll pay half the cost of, okay. Thank you.
Half the cost up to $10,000. So most projects are under that 10,000 cap, but we can pay up to 10,000.
Not necessarily on the river, though.
Yeah, true enough.
You
Yeah.
gotta pump it uphill. Yeah.
We've seen quite a wide variety. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Mr. Reagan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to commend the planning office. When this funding first was awarded to the county, and it was discovered that there was no funds for administration, a lot of upstate counties who had been awarded this funding did not know what to do in terms of accessing the funds in order to help homeowners repair failed septic systems. But our planning office was very innovative and worked with Soil and Water and was able to not only use the funds that they had been awarded, but access additional funds. So I think that it shows what outstanding people we have in the planning office and Soil and Water, who stepped up and made it possible to help a lot of homeowners on these various bodies of water who were struggling with failed septic systems. So thank you for not giving up and working hard to make this funding available to help families in St. Lawrence County.
Okay.
Thank you for your kind words. Appreciate that.
Anyone else? Seeing none, all those in favor of the resolution signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Our next resolution is authorizing the chair to sign a contract with North Country Housing Council to administer the 2021 septic system replacement program. Moved by Mr. Smithers, second by Mr. Sheridan and Mr. Fay. Go ahead, Jason.
Thank you very much. Yep, this resolution came out of an RFP process. The county did go through a formal RFP process for these services to administer this program, and the Housing Council's proposal did best meet the criteria outlined in the RFP. So that was the rationale for selecting that entity. They also do have experience working on this program. They were the administrator for the first round, so they have familiarity with the program, with the contractors, with the engineers that would work with the homeowners to bring this program around or along. So that's the rationale for choosing this entity.
Okay, Mr. Denisha has a question for you, Jason.
Actually, I have three.
Oh, three.
First one, Jason, I think you alluded to the fact, but was St. Lawrence Housing Council the only one to respond to the RFP?
That is correct. Yep.
Okay, which leads me to my second question. So the reason that they were picked, because they were they provided the best. I can't remember what your words were. That they provided the best. They best met the criteria outlined. Well, right. They were the only one that submitted proposal for an RFP. I guess it's kind of hard to say that they were the best qualified. They met the criteria, or they didn't meet it. There's not a good, better, best to give it. They didn't. Just a statement, you know, I'm not a fan of the St. Lawrence County Housing Council, North Country Housing Council. I don't think they have our best interests at heart, nor those of our folks in the county that they provide work for. And the third question I have, the St. Lawrence County Planning Office, do we conduct a project closeout interviews? And by that, do we conduct interviews with the contractor, with North Country Housing Council to find out how it went, and the homeowners, are they satisfied?
Okay, Jason, you care to respond?
Certainly, yeah. I thank you for correcting me. That probably not the best choice of wording, saying best met the criteria. You're correct. They were the only respondent. However, they did meet the criteria. It's difficult to compare, but they did meet that criteria. There were a number of requirements in the RFP, and their responses did answer those questions. There was a formal review process. Myself, as well as two other individuals, the head of the Soil and Water Conservation District and the county sanitarian, did look at the proposal together. We met last Friday, reviewed it, and did come to that conclusion that that yes, even though there was only one, that we still needed to go through the formal review process, and did all come out with the unanimous decision that yes, we would feel comfortable moving forward with them because they did meet the criteria that was outlined in the RFP. With regard to the question about exit interviews, we did not have a formal exit interview process for this grant in the past. However, we do meet on a regular basis with the Housing Council for other programs that are administered by that entity. And this in the past, this project was discussed at that time as well. So there wasn't a specific formal process, but it certainly was incorporated into our general quality control, quality assurance undertakings with that entity. We also have contact with the contractors, with the engineers, checking in, making sure that everything is working okay, and with the clientele. Not all clientele, but certainly some will call our office. We'll certainly reach out to them and answer any questions that they may have with regard to the program. I think that was 2, Larry. I apologize. Your third question escapes me right now.
Oh, it was my third, well, actually one of my questions, I'm not sure if it was the second or third, Jason, but was the criteria. Is it objective or subjective?
I think it's pretty objective. The criteria was to identify how you would go about managing the program, what your cost per unit would be. I think that's an objective way of determining just the effectiveness of the program, effectiveness of the administrator for the program, the cost per unit. I believe it's in the resolution, $850 per unit is slightly less than what was paid the first time around. So I thought that was a way of the entity was sharpening their pencils a little bit, seeing that okay, there's some competition here through this RFP process. We want to make sure that we can be as lean and as efficient as we can through this process. So I think there certainly was a lot of objectivity through the review process.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jason.
Thank you.
Okay, so any other questions for Mr. Fultonhauer on this resolution? Dave Forsyth.
Jason, thanks, Mr. Chair. Just one follow-up, Jason. Originally, when it came out, it was for year-round residences. I thought they changed that to seasonal. Does this include seasonal and year-round now?
My understanding is that yes, it does. It does include seasonal and year-round. There is another requirement. This is pretty much the same requirements as first time around. 250 feet of the affected water body. So the system has to be within 250 feet of the water body that is identified. So that's
okay.
Just
fair enough. Thank you. Yep.
Okay, anyone else? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor of the resolution signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Mr. Denisha. Okay, motion carried. Next up is our county attorney, Mr. Button, and the resolution will need to change the dollar amount. The dollar amount that's listed is $7,640. It needs to be changed for $10,140. I've been assured by the county administrator that that is budgeted. And the resolution, so we would need a friendly amendment or a friendly acknowledgement made by Rita Curran, seconded by Mr. Perkins. All those in favor of changing the dollar amount from $7,640 to $10,140 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay. And now for the actually amended resolution, as stated, is authorizing the chair to sign a contract with Audit Environmental LLC for environmental investigation on property owned by the estate of Betty Davis and properties owned by Melvin Bice and property owned by Grant's Gas and Grocery LLC. Moved by Mr. Perkins, second by Mr. Smithers and Mr. Denisha. Mr. Button.
Thank you. I think you're all aware at this time of the year, we start moving on the properties. It's the culmination really of a year-long process where we've been examining these properties with the real property office as well as with the treasurer's office. But these 3 properties in particular are believed to potentially have petroleum-based contamination. This resolution will authorize us to hire a contractor that will come in and perform a phase 2 or an exploratory review of the property. It actually will allow us to hire 2 contractors, one out of Watertown, which is Odin, and their subcontractor, which is a separate entity that will be doing the digging out of Lowville. So they are both fairly local and they're bidding. We had 3 bids that were received. And these guys, even with the modification in the dollar amount, still came in as the lowest bidder associated with the properties. This is one of several resolutions that you will see over the course of the next few months. This deals with 3 properties that we're looking to explore on. But as you know, this is when we start getting active with the DEC associated with our pre-foreclosure agreements, post-foreclosure cleanups, our pre-foreclosure agreements, pre-foreclosure cleanups. So you'll be seeing a lot of resolution activity associated with these properties, I suspect, over the course of the next 3 to 4 months.
Any questions for Mr. Button concerning this resolution? Seeing none, all those in favor of the resolution signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Okay, so the Vacancy Review Committee, as long as you're on there, Stephen, could you speak to the position of abolishing a paralegal and creating an assistant county attorney, please?
I certainly can. I think the board is aware of the activities that have transpired in order to consolidate the offices of the DSS legal unit along with the county attorney's functions. Prior to the consolidation, there had been a plan afoot to convert a paralegal position that was housed in the DSS unit to perform DSS attorney functions. In fact, the individual that previously occupied the position was a recent graduate who was awaiting his bar results, and the intention had been to change it to an attorney position, I believe, once that individual secured his bar licensure. Well, he received his bar licensure, but immediately accepted a position in the Syracuse area. It didn't change the fact that that position ultimately needed to be an attorney position, but he is now no longer occupying it. So the intention for this position is for it to essentially be a utility player. And what I mean by that is that this position will still be dedicated to DSS function, but instead of just performing Family Court Article 10 performance or Family Court Act Article 3 and 4 performance, this individual will be able to be engaged in child support activities, which my office currently handles, will be able to be engaged in JDs and PINs, which also my office currently handles. Will be able to be involved in the Article 10 proceedings with the DSS unit and handles. Will also be able to be involved in the appellate work on behalf of DSS. Will also be able to be involved in the fair hearings on behalf of DSS. So my intention is to find someone that is very broad-based in their understanding of law and be able to actively participate in the full gamut of activities that DSS is involved with. Now, I state this because I juxtapose it against the other activities that folks are in. I currently am a utility player, but I'm a utility player not only with respect to DSS, but I also handle general civil litigation, FOIL activities, workers' comp. This individual won't be in the workers' comp arena or involved with the in-rim tax foreclosure proceedings or the FOILs. They'll be dedicated towards DSS activity. But there are other individuals in the DSS unit that are strictly performing Article 10 activities. One of the things that I heard from the board over the course of the past several months is a real concern that attention be put towards the Article 10 child neglect and abuse action. So we now, since the change, have dedicated attorneys solely to the Article 10 neglect and abuse matters. We had to remove all of the child support court matters from their attention, and I have taken that over since May 3rd. So this individual will at least be a utility player amongst all the DSS activities.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Button. Any questions for Mr. Button concerning this position? Seeing none, we'll move on. We have the County Administrator's Report. This is Ruth Doyle. The first resolution is authorizing the chair to sign a lease agreement with lot number 21 or space in the city of Augsburg located at 206 Ford Street. Moved by Mr. Reagan, second by Mr. Sheridan. Mrs. Doyle.
So this resolution brings together the departments that are already in the location in Ogdensburg. That is Probation Services, Department of Motor Vehicles, and newly renamed Addiction Services. This will be the lease. It reduced the footprint that we had been carrying from the days of public health being there as well, and some of this more specific community services to now. Last week you took a look at the remaining space for social services, and that was approved. This would solidify the lease for the remaining space that we've occupied, I believe, since 2008, if not earlier. Questions?
Mr. Reagan.
Ruth, how many county employees will we have there?
In total,
All departments?
I would have to get back to you with an exact, but I would think between 30 and 50, depending on how social services occupies.
Thank you.
You bet.
Mr. Lightfoot.
You said between 30 and 50?
Yes.
Is there sufficient room to accommodate those numbers if you go on the high end?
There is.
I'm a little concerned about a 5-year lease. Why did we not negotiate a 3-year lease with a couple of extension years?
That's always an option. The space that I'm referring to in terms of the flex space you looked at services, these spaces have not changed for the 3 departments who have been there for a number of years.
Mm-hmm.
But our intent is there's been some improvements in the space. There continue to be working on improvements there. And it is becoming a well-known location for county services. So that area also, if you've been down in the Ford Street area there, has improved. Community Health Center of the North Country has done significant renovations to their services there as well as their facility. Seaway Valley Prevention Council is also in the area and has improved and expanded their services. So from that perspective, we did look at other locations, and the departments that were there have found success getting the folks they provide services to that location. It's walkable as well. That's been an important part of the conversation.
Over the years, we've had some issues with that location. Are you satisfied that they have all been addressed and that we're not looking at having to deal with them in this 5-year period that we're looking at voting in favor of?
Several of the issues have been addressed. I believe the only outstanding issue remaining is the back entrance, and there are conversations about how that will be renovated. The air filtration component, the space, the paint, all of the upkeep has been addressed. The elevator has recently been upgraded and serviced. So we expect that all of those areas that were raised as concerns have been addressed and are in satisfactory condition. And we've addressed in the lease also notice to be provided to us. Being a remote location, we weren't always immediately aware of those concerns. And so we believe that will be addressed also.
Well, what assurances do we have that they will be taken care of? And, given that this is a 5-year term, and I'm really gonna have a hard time with this one. I think that that's a couple of years too long. My personal feeling is, and it has nothing to do with the site or with the owners of that property. But 50 people, I'm just concerned that if we have those numbers of people over there, that we're going to end up like we are across the street with people packed into a place. I really question whether there's room for 50 people at one time in that building, in the space. And I'm also concerned about a 5-year lease. I would like something or somebody to tell me why a 3-year lease wasn't considered with a couple of 1-year extensions as opposed to a straight 5-year lease.
No particular reason. And it's certainly something if the board would like for us to have continued conversations, we can do that. And I can revise the number. I can get an exact number by suite. But we're looking last week in a separate lease at between 15 and 18 people. Those were 2 vacant spaces for a very long period of time. The continued both clients visiting the location and county employees would probably be closer to that number. So I can nail down exactly what we'd be looking at for folks working there as well as folks visiting there at any given time.
Well, if we pass this resolution tonight without it being amended or changed in some fashion, we're committed to a 5-year lease with these people.
Not until you adopt on the 7th.
I beg your pardon?
Not until it's officially adopted on the 7th. You can always amend.
Understood. I understand. Okay, thank you, Ruth.
You bet.
Mr. Forsyth.
Ruth, what sort of parking is associated with this? A lot of the parking for DMV is on street parking. What are we getting out back?
There is sort of a bump out that comes up toward the entrance to that location. I can find out the exact number of spaces. I don't have that in front of me. We do park county vehicles there for the staff that work over there. And then there is the overflow parking. That is city owned, but I believe Northern Physical Therapy in the back lot there. And there's ample parking between that and behind the Community Health Center of the North Country.
Yeah, but they don't own all those lots, right? Those are other people's parking areas, I believe. You're talking 50 employees. You got to assume there's going to be 40 vehicles that are going to be employees' vehicles. My concern is parking, I think. I've noticed the DMV the last couple of years, it's getting harder and harder to park on the little strip across from the theater. My concern would be the parking. If you could just let me know what that is for sure, I'd appreciate that.
I can get that for you.
Yeah, thanks.
Anyone else? Okay. Seeing none, all those in favor of the resolution as written, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
One opposition, and also, wait, we got 3. So Mr. Forsyth, Ms. Curran, and Mr. Lightfoot are in opposition.
Okay.
Ready? Our next resolution is appointing the St. Lawrence County historian. Nobody wants a historian? Mr. Smithers does. Is there a second by Mr. Reagan? Okay. And Ms. Curran, Mrs. Doyle.
This resolution comes before you in a new fashion of separating out the work between the Historical Association and the county historian efforts. Last year, you appointed Nancy LaFavor as your interim historian, who's been providing review and oversight, looking at a number of different projects and ways to pay for them, which is much more helpful, I think, in terms of actually seeing them come to fruition. The Historical Association is again on a search for a new director this year as well. So I believe at this time it's appropriate to appoint Nancy as our historian to take on those in an official capacity.
Okay. Any questions for Ruth Doyle on this matter? What duties will be distinguished between the two?
Well, the executive director will be relieved of the county historian duties. So they run the museum, they run the association with membership and the exhibits that happen at the museum. The historian will work more with county records as well as the functions to be provided at the old jail.
And to operate the same building?
No.
No. Okay, all right. Okay, any other questions? Okay, all those in favor of the resolution signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. So we'll move on to committee reports. First
Mr.
up
Chair?
is, I'm sorry.
I just have a couple of items
do?
as I
Okay.
normally would. Real quick.
Should be listed under excited out there. EPC.
Just a brief COVID-19 update. The guidance being issued or is being followed that was issued by New York State in county facilities regarding mask wearing. We are maintaining the 6 feet of social distancing in our buildings, and that will be continued as verification of vaccine is not required, but the unvaccinated and immunocompromised are recommended to continue wearing their masks. The courts are still continuing to require masks in the courtroom at this time. And since we brought staff back on the 21st, we have remained at just a few cases among them. and mitigated those in the way of departments or units having to be shuttered, with those vaccinated not having to be quarantined. The folks also that have been infected with COVID-19 have and are recovering. Our plan continues while we're monitoring the cases and have seen a slight uptick to open our buildings next Tuesday, June 1st. And I would, just in the way that I shared with you last week about the control room calls going away, is a good sign. Now the vaccine hub calls have gone from 2 times a week down to once per week, and mostly focused on making sure any counties in our region can either access or share vaccine if they have a particular population that requires service that does not have access. So they're working together well. That continues. But I do have one announcement that's pretty exciting. Our first achievement award that has been awarded by the National Association of Counties for the First Mile, Last Mile program. And you all at, I think, different stages have been hearing a little bit about this. And it's operated by a Volunteer Transportation Center, who works through our transit to make that last mile access to the transit system. It has been tremendously successful. 8.2% of our transit riders use it to access the transit system. 66% of that use it to connect to employment, and another 16% use it to access institutions of higher learning. So a pretty innovative approach to get people to the bus stop and to pick them up at the bus stop to return them home. So we're thrilled for both our planning staff, Volunteer Transportation Corps, JRC, who provides that service for us, is our operator of the bus system. So very, very pleased and proud of them.
Is this Frank Dolo's initiative, or is he part of that?
He's part of it. Yes, he is.
Okay.
Yep.
Great. It's an excellent achievement.
Yep. And 2 remaining items, just changing gears for a second to the city of Ogdensburg. We spoke of dispatch and hazmat services at operations. With regard to the environmentally contaminated properties, that assistance is continuing, mostly focused at this time on the Shade Roller property, but continuing to work towards accessing the other properties as well. And the remaining item of those 4 that the Consolidation Committee looked at was the tax collection options, and those discussions are ongoing, and we'll give you an update on that as soon as we can. We hope to meet later this week with the city to discuss dispatch services with Emergency Services Director and myself. This Wednesday at 4 p.m. is the entrance interview. I think Renee alluded to it with Drescher and Malecki for the entrance to the 2020 audit. And hopefully the Fiscal Stability Committee can do the entrance audit, but also then take a little bit of a deeper dive into the 2020 unaudited results and take a look at those. On Wednesday in the morning, we're planning to meet with Enterprise to begin planning for the 2022 fleet, which builds into our budget process, which is already underway for 2022, with the payroll function and staff listings out to departments for review and return so that the budget can begin being built. And next month, in keeping with board policy, I'll be bringing you recommendations on the 3 areas of our reserves: employee accrued liability, our self-insurance, and our capital reserve. Questions?
Mr. Burke.
Ruth, have we received the guidelines for the stimulus money?
So I've attended, and with a few other staff, we've attended some updates on the American Rescue Plan funds about what they can be used for, what they cannot be used for, and that guidance continues to change. We are working now to have the accounts set up online. Some counties are beginning to receive some of their funds. Our hope is that will occur inside this month. And my hope also, as I mentioned last week, and I think the time before, to organize folks of the legislature to meet to determine how best to spend those funds coming in. So I'll put together a summary, John, and share that with everyone of what we understand so far.
Thank you, Ruth. I have one more question too.
Sure.
I probably should have asked it when you were talking about the space for Ogdensburg. I guess I'm wondering, if we were to go to any remote working so that people work from home, would that change our need for space? And I guess the second part of that question, I'm wondering, how would you select people to work there would it be because of their proximity to the work location, or how might that be done?
So the existing staff that work in those locations, as you know, also have locations, those departments in other communities in the county. And I think that there are times that comes into account with regard to where they live. But when they're hired, those employees are identified to be assigned to any of those work locations. And I think specific to your question in regards to our newest department going over there, I think there's a couple of things. I'm not getting involved with who's assigned over there. I think that's a great department effort to make those determinations. And I believe that they're looking at which units could be assigned over there with greatest ease. And one of those categories may be geography, but I think it also may be the type of expertise with the types of cases that we're seeing with prevalence in those areas, and in this case in Ogdensburg. So I think it's a combination of factors. I think when we can, sometimes we try to provide that short commute, but that's not always a guarantee.
Well, and just to be clear, I'm not suggesting that. I mean, our first order of business is servicing the public, and
yes.
I think that certainly is the critical piece. But I guess I was just wondering if there were, if we were to do remote work, would that change the needs?
Well, I think that's a great question, John, and I wouldn't limit that to just this lease. I think that could impact all of our county facilities and our footprint for sure. But that's not the place we are at this time. So we still want to provide the location. And I think that remote work probably wouldn't be 100% anyway. I think perhaps someday in the future we could have those types of discussions. But I think there will be a need to have an on-site location, even if at some point in time there was an opportunity to do some of your work at a remote location.
Mm-hmm. Which I guess I would say, to Joe's point, maybe it would be better to have a shorter term commitment rather than a longer term if there are other things we're looking to explore.
I think that's a great point.
Yeah, thank you.
You bet.
Okay, we'll move on to committee reports. First up is Cornell Cooperative Extension Board, and that's Mr. Tanisha.
Mr. Chairman, I have nothing to report from my last report, but tomorrow evening I will. We are meeting at 5:30, and we're going to be meeting live.
Live. Okay, great. That's great news. Fish and Wildlife Management Board for Region 6, Ms. Curran.
Hi there. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So on April 29th, they had the State Fish and Wildlife Management Board meeting. Unfortunately, I got an email afterwards and they said, despite sending your name to the state twice, they did not include you in the email. Here was the agenda. I know they spent a lot of time talking about fur bearers and the current regulations, because in COVID, I guess we have more otters and fishers after COVID than we did before, whether it was because people weren't out or they just, even the fishers and the otters spent more time at home, I'm not sure. But I will have a full report. They're going to send me the minutes this week when they're done.
Okay, Fisheries Advisory Board, Ms. Terminelli.
Nothing to report. We still have not had a meeting.
Okay, thank you. Governor Fair Board, Mr. Smithers.
Yes, the Governor Fair Board has met. They meet once a month, and they are proceeding with plans for a number of activities in compliance with the guidelines from the state, which are improving, less restrictions, which is a good thing. Current concerns regarding the fair, which is being planned on being held, our grandstand seating would be the main event, and to comply with the current guidelines, may be advantageous to turn the seating around into the infield to accommodate more people and follow the guidelines as a possibility. That's to be determined. Another concern would be what to do with the milk from the cows that are there. That's been a concern in the past, and they're not sure how that's gonna work out this year. So things are moving ahead.
Okay, thank you. And while we're at it, Mr. Smithers, the Highway Solid Waste Committee report.
Yeah, yes, we met last week and we got a report from Don Chambers that pretty much covered everything in addition to the resolutions tonight.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Smithers. Industrial Development Agency, Mr. Reagan.
The Industrial Development Agency met and is moving ahead with the renovations at the Newell Building. It's on schedule. And the IDA is currently working with the Dunn Paper Company, Natural Dam outside Governor, to try to secure some funding to improve and fix the rail spur at the paper company there so that they can use the railroad and make their operation more efficient.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Reagan. Recreational and Trails Advisory, Mr. Perkins.
Trails are being used pretty good right now due to the weather. People are getting anxious to buy the trail permit passes, which I believe are still on schedule for June 1st. And just as a note, the Jones Road Bridge will be closed from June 1st to about October 15th for the new bridge. And we still have a portion out down by Tooley Pond that's out that we expect to be fixed very soon for that to be used.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Perkins.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Could I have Assistant Administrator Silver add to the recreational trails update
Certainly.
with the trail passes?
So we've been working on getting the website live since local law was passed, and as of this afternoon, it is live on the website. People can go on and actually purchase the pass directly from the website. Permits will get mailed out. We're working on finding local partners to sell permits along the trail and in the ATV lodging industry as well.
So that's at the county website?
Yes.
County website, you can go on there, there's a banner at the top that says purchase your trail permit here, or there's a button further down the page where they can go and purchase it.
That's great news. Okay, we'll spread the word. Thank you. St. Lawrence River Valley Redevelopment Agency, Mr. Forsyth.
Thank you. We met last Wednesday, I believe it was. We went over the Cdeip grant applications. This year, I think there was 15 of them for a combined amount twice what we allocate. So there were some good applications in there. We left it. We've got a tentative amount. Patrick wanted to go back to a couple of the applicants and just see about if they could move forward with their projects with a little bit less money. So we should be meeting again to wrap them up. But yeah, there were a lot of applicants. Well, I say a lot, about the same as usual, but it was a little bit tougher this year for sure, no question.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Forsyth. Margaret Haggard is not with us with the St. Lawrence County Chamber. Does anyone here have anything to add about the Chamber of Commerce?
I believe she'll report out next week, if that's okay.
Okay, sure. Okay, so we'll move on to Soil and Water. Mr. Berg.
Soil and Water Board met last Thursday. The forester is working with the last timber commercial sale from 2019. They had obtained an extension to remove the timber, and he said it should be wrapping up soon. He also sent out, the forester sent out an email to all town supervisors and clerks regarding the roadside ash and hazard tree assessment. And the response thus far has been kind of sparse, but they're hoping that they will get a good response from the towns. The foresters have been busy establishing protocols and prepping data for the upcoming inventory of the county forest parcels. He did mention just, he talked about the cost of timber, and he mentioned that prices are high, and especially the price for white oak, for those who might be interested. The technician for soil and water has been busy with soil sampling for the ag plans. She's using the drone to help with the mapping. And she's also been helping the county forester. They've obtained a forestry intern, a recent graduate from Paul Smith's, to help with the summer activities. That's pretty much it. Oh, they sold their truck. And interesting, they said they sold it for $1,100 more than they paid for it. So I thought that was an interesting point. Anything you can think of, Kevin, that I might have missed?
No, John, it was very thorough. We did receive an email. Mr. Forsyth, go ahead.
Just a quick question, John, for the timber. Do we, or Ruth, or I don't know who would answer this. What about leniency when wood prices are extreme right now? White pine. Pine is hard to come by in some places. A lot of the Amish are building sheds, and there's a huge order, I guess, from Canada. Do we have the ability to adjust if we need to take advantage of these high prices? Or if we say we're not going to timber, do we not timber?
Well, we haven't, we've had discussions, Dave, about not doing any timbering. This was a leftover one from 2019. And the individual had secured an extension. So it was from a previous sale, but I think your point's a good one. I think it's a question to ask the board. Maybe Kevin knows, but I would certainly hope that any future sales, whenever they may occur, would reflect the increased value of timber.
Yeah, I just think I always like to strike while the iron's hot, and right now the iron's hot, I believe, in the wood world. So, yeah.
Well, the resolution that we passed, and I don't know if it's been 2 years now, was to make the resolution was to allow the forester to make decisions based on for the good of the forest. And previous to that, at least from 2011 to 2015, from when we were really hurting for money, there was pressure put on the forester to sell product and our forests they need time to grow. We basically have scalped them and taken more probably than what we should have. And so now I think that's what the decision has been made. We don't really have the mature stuff timber that's standing that is appropriate for sale. So at this time, I think unless there's a resolution to counter that, it's for the resolution was for the good of the forest. Okay. We did receive an email today. I think at least I did anyway. You must have it also from the St. Lawrence Viking Association and complimenting Aaron, our forester, Aaron Behringer, our forester, for his work on the trails as far as the logging that was done and making them suitable for biking. They mentioned that he went out on a Saturday to give them a hand, basically recovering these trails. So that's good news that we can work together. Okay, so under old and new business, we have a resolution proclaiming June as Dairy Month. Moved by Mr. Sheridan, or Mr. Denisha, and Mr. Sheridan second, Mr. Smithers and Mr. Perkins and Ms. Curran. Any discussion? Anybody want to talk about milk? I can't believe that Mr. Smithers does. Yes.
I found reading down through this some impressive statistics, noteworthy. We hear about how there aren't as many farmers as there used to be, and to realize that there's 253 dairy farms in the county, And the dairy products in 2017 exceeded 139 million, 73% of the total value of agricultural products. I think that's noteworthy.
Yep, it's a tough job. It's a tough job.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I would just offer that we also are working with the folks who promote the Dairy Princess. They are working through their election process now, I believe, and that should happen close to our board meeting. But our hope is that we can return to a little bit of a gathering outside and enjoy the products they typically bring and allow them to introduce themselves.
Okay, great. Mr. Denisha.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The other thing, and I noticed that it wasn't in the resolution, but I think it doesn't need to be, but I think it's important, is to the multiplier effect for every dollar. And I believe, now this was, well, the last time we had the county ag tour, we went to, and I think that was 2 or 3 years ago. We went to G. Barton Acres. And I know Steve Morrill talked about the multiplier. And I think it was 3 to 1. So that's huge. And if you're talking $100 million that the dairy industry generates, it's a 3 to 1 multiplier. And I don't think a lot of people realize that.
Right, I think it's understated. I know like Bardot Brothers with the fertilizer plant, they have one in Vermont and another enterprise. They do over $1 billion worth of business. That's with a B. And so that's huge for all the fertilizer and products that are purchased there, the services provided. So $1 billion, not all of it in St. Lawrence County, but I would bet half of that. So, okay, we vote. We haven't voted on it yet. So all those in favor of the resolution signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Okay, do we have a need for executive session, Mrs. Doyle?
We do for negotiations, litigation, personnel, which is the medical, financial, credit, or employment history of a particular person or corporation, or matters leading to the appointment, employment, promotion, demotion, discipline, suspension, dismissal, or removal of a particular person or corporation, and for the proposed acquisition, sale, or lease of real property, or the proposed acquisition of securities, or sale or exchange of securities held by such public body, but only when publicity would substantially affect the value thereof.
I'm gonna have to ask you to repeat that.
And appointments.
Because I forgot, I'm gonna have to ask you to repeat that because I forgot about the new business. So Mr. Denisha has something on the new business.
I'd be happy to.
I just want to make a quick note. Yesterday morning, when I looked at the Watertown Times, there was a great photo in the Watertown Times of one of our senior investigators for Child Protective Services, Christina Adams, painting a mural in the basement of the Social Services building. I haven't seen it in person. The picture was great, and it was nice to see something positive. There was some kind words in there from our DSS commissioner, Ms. Ackerman, but from Ms. Adams, and it's nice taking space that was dark and dingy and dismal and transforming it into something that's cheerful.
Yeah, I read the article. It was very nice, and zoo or animals, and that would be acceptable for children to visit and to see and stuff to cheer up the place. Ms. Curran, I think, wants to make a comment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I recently toured that area of the building and got to see it up close. And the artwork there is really quite exquisite. It might be worth some people's time to go over and take a peek. Lots of hours into that.
So Christine also makes jewelry out of waste products, metal and soft drink cans and stuff like that. It's very nice. Okay, do we have a need for executive session? We do. We have gone through the litany. I will not ask you to repeat that.
I did also mean to add in appointments.
Appointments, okay. So I'd entertain a motion to go into executive session. Mr. Fay, second by Mr. Lightfoot. All those seeing nothing, I would take a motion to adjourn. Mr. Smithers, second by Mr. Perkins. All those in favor,